Imagine a ruler who dared to stand against not just a pantheon of gods, but the very foundations of his civilization. Meet Akhenaten, the rebel pharaoh whose love for the sun could redefine our understanding of history. But his journey was fraught with betrayal, obsession, and ultimately, tragedy. Join me as we explore his life and uncover the dark truth behind the dazzling sun god. Akhenaten's story is set against the backdrop of ancient Egypt, a land where the Nile's annual floods brought life to pharaohs and people alike. Life revolved around the sun, its life-giving light-nourished crops, and dictated the daily lives of the Egyptians. Naturally, the sun became a deity, a father figure whose life-giving rays sustained and protected his people. Thus began the veneration of Ra, the sun god, and his countless epithets, each representing a different aspect of the life-giving orb in the sky. Over the centuries, Ra merged with other deities and took on various forms, including Amun, the king of the gods, Amenhotep, the powerful god of Thebes, and Amenhat, the spirit of the sun's rays. The sun god became synonymous with the pharaohs themselves, seen as living embodiments of the divine. Each pharaoh was considered a son of Ra, legitimizing their rule and binding them to the well-being of their people. But amidst this backdrop of tradition and divinity, a new star was about to rise, one that would challenge everything Egypt held sacred, Akhenaten. Born into the royal family, Akhenaten's early life remains shrouded in mystery. We know little of his childhood or how he ascended to the throne. However, the moment he stepped into the role of pharaoh, he unleashed a series of changes that would shake the very core of Egyptian society. At the heart of Akhenaten's revolution was the Aten, a relatively obscure sun disk, which until now had shared the heavens with a multitude of gods and goddesses. Akhenaten saw something unique in this sun disk. It wasn't just a source of light or a symbol of power. To him, the Aten represented absolute divinity, the sole creator and sustainer of the universe. With this conviction, he embarked on a mission to elevate the Aten to the status of the one and only god. This transformation didn't come without conflict. Ancient Egypt was a land saturated with religion, where every nook and corner housed a shrine, temple, or altar dedicated to a particular god or goddess. Akhenaten's monotheistic zeal threatened the very fabric of this religious landscape. The priests, who had immense power and wealth, fiercely opposed this shift. After all, their livelihood, influence, and social standing were intricately linked to the continuation of polytheism. Akhenaten's call to abandon the old gods for the Aten was akin to challenging the pillars that held Egyptian society together. Yet he pressed on undeterred. One of the most significant blows he dealt was to the traditional religion was the city of Thebes. Once a bustling religious hub, home to the most powerful priesthood in Egypt, Thebes became the epicenter of Akhenaten's revolution. He relocated his capital there, renaming it Akhetaten, meaning Horizon of the Aten. From here, he launched a campaign to spread the worship of the Aten throughout his empire. It was in Amarna that Akhenaten's true colors shone. Under his reign, Egypt became a battleground between tradition and change. While he promoted the worship of the Aten, he simultaneously cracked down on traditional religions and rituals. He defaced temples of other gods, confiscated their lands, and curtailed the influence of the priesthood. This wasn't just about changing people's beliefs. It was about dismantling a system that had held Egypt captive for centuries. It was about stripping away the old gods so that only the Aten could remain. However, Akhenaten's revolution wasn't confined to religion. He also ushered in changes that extended to art, architecture, and daily life. One of the most striking aspects of this revolution was the way Akhenaten depicted himself and his family. The traditional image of the pharaoh as a regal, imposing figure was challenged by Akhenaten's own unique representation. On the walls of Amarna's temples, he is shown alongside his wife Nefertiti and their children in an intimate and unconventional manner. Their bodies are elongated, their limbs twisted in unusual angles, and their expressions are candid and natural. It's a stark departure from the usual portrayal of pharaohs as distant, divine beings. It reflects a desire to present the royal family in a more relatable, human-like form. But this revolutionary approach to art wasn't just about humanization. It also signaled a shift in focus from the pharaoh as a warrior god to the pharaoh as a worshipper of the sun. The emphasis is no longer on military conquests or divine lineage, but on devotion to the Aten. It's a celebration of a new Egypt, an Egypt that looks to the sun, not to Ra or Amenhotep, for guidance and strength. However, not everyone was comfortable with this new Egypt. As Akhenaten continued to promote the worship of the Aten, opposition grew, not just from the priests, but from various segments of society. The traditional gods were deeply ingrained in people's lives, and the idea of abandoning them for a single sun disk was unsettling. This wasn't just a matter of theological debate. It was a challenge to the very essence of their cultural identity. For centuries, Egyptians had found solace, meaning, and purpose in the stories and rituals associated with their gods. The prospect of losing these traditions was daunting. The resistance to Akhenaten's reforms wasn't uniform or organized. It manifested in subtle ways, from whispers in the markets to acts of defiance in the temples. People clung to their old gods, seeking comfort in their familiar stories and rituals. This tension between tradition and change created a society divided, a kingdom torn between the allure of the past and the uncertainties of the future. As Akhenaten's obsession with the Aten intensified, he became increasingly isolated, not just from his subjects, but from reality itself. He neglected his duties, forsaking diplomacy, war, and governance. The once powerful Egyptian empire began to suffer. Its borders were breached, its alliances faltered, and its people grew discontented. Yet Akhenaten remained steadfast in his pursuit of the Aten. He saw himself as a vessel of the divine, chosen to usher Egypt into a new era of enlightenment. But the isolation grew, the discontent festered, and the seeds of rebellion were sown. In the end, Akhenaten's story is a tale of unfulfilled potential. He dared to dream of a new Egypt, one where the worship of a single god brought unity and simplicity. But his methods were too radical, his changes too abrupt, and his obsession too consuming. He failed to build bridges with his subjects, to address their fears, or to temper his reforms with compassion. His death marked not just the end of a pharaoh's life, but the end of an era. The priests of Amun, emboldened by popular discontent, seized control and reversed many of Akhenaten's reforms. The old gods returned to favor, the temples were restored, and the worship of the Aten was suppressed. Akhenaten's legacy was erased from official records, his statues toppled, and his memory vilified. Nefertiti, his queen and partner in revolution, vanished from the historical narrative, leaving behind a mystery that continues to captivate. What happened to her? Did she continue the worship of the Aten in secret? Or did she, too, recant her beliefs and embrace the old ways? The truth remains buried in the sands of time. But Akhenaten's story doesn't end here. His ideas, though crushed, did not die. The seeds of monotheism he planted found fertile ground in the hearts of some, laying the foundation for the Abrahamic faiths that would emerge centuries later. Today, the ruins of Amarna stand as a testament to Akhenaten's dreams, a silent echo of a forgotten pharaoh. They tell the story of a man who dared to defy convention, who dared to dream of a different world, and who dared to worship the sun as the one and only God. And so, Akhenaten remains an enigma, a puzzle whose pieces refuse to fit neatly into the narrative of ancient Egypt. He is the pharaoh who loved the sun a little too much, who turned his back on tradition, and who changed the course of history without realizing it. His story is a reminder that the greatest revolutions often begin with a single, seemingly insignificant step, and that sometimes the greatest changes happen when we least expect them. If you found this video interesting, check out this video on the untold story of King Tut's tomb.